we are going to start off, the order we're going to do, or starting, we're going to make the marinade for the fish first and let that marinate for as long as we can. It should be over an hour. And then we're going to make the roti dough. And then we're going to come back and then do the dessert after that. All right. And then we'll move on to the other stuff. So the it's called a fish stew. It really is kind of like, I think it's a little, it's sort of reminiscent a little bit like gumbo. It's not, it's just, it's over rice, you know, with the fish and the other ingredients, but it's not like a big, lots and lots of liquid on here, but it's kind of really interesting. And that lemon and lime gives it a really nice tropical taste, which is just what we need tonight. It's so flipping cold. I'm cold even in my kitchen, so I'm hoping my oven's going to warm it up a little bit. So now the thing is, you do want something non-metallic to put your marinade in. I'm just going to use this as a small piece because when you're using acid of any sort, lemon, limes, vinegar, or anything in a marinade, which you usually do, if you put it in metal, it's going to get the taste of the, it's going to taste metallic-y, all right? And you don't want that. So you definitely want to do it in something, anything non-metal, as long as it's, as I say, ceramic is good, glass or whatever is fine, all right? And what we're going to do is a half a lime for the amount of fish we're doing, but I'm going to zest first. I've got actually a lime which I zested half of it last night. So you want to just grate the zest into whatever container you're going to put your fish in. And about the zest of about half a lime. It doesn't have to be exact. And I just have one really big fillet of fish here, which I'm actually just going to cut in half. But if you have two, you want to lie in a single layer, really. It's amazing how much zest you get off just a half a lime. Get all the green off. You don't have one of these are the best things to zest with. It's a microplane. I mean, there are other mates. This is a microplane. Makes zesting so much easier to do it on the side of a grater, which I always used to hate to do. This makes it goes much quicker. All right, so I've got all of mine because it was only half of the lime, all right? And then what I want you to do then is to cut your lime in half and squeeze the juice from half your lime into the same bowl, okay? It's all nice and very sharp. And don't worry if there's pits in it or anything, because you can pick those out. You know, it's not good if they do go. Not there's usually that many pits in limes. Sometimes there's a few. We're going to put lemon juice in as well, but I'm squeezing that right in there like that. Squeeze it all out. And then I'm just going to sort of distribute this over the bottom of my container that I'm putting my fish in, all right? And then I have my piece of whitefish. I have tilapia here. I like tilapia. So I've got tilapia, but obviously whatever fish you have is fine. And as I said, I'm going to cut mine. It's a big, thick fillet, so I'm actually going to cut it into two pieces lengthwise, but you can put the whole fillet in one piece or whatever you want to do. So I'm just going to cut it in half like this, and I'm going to lay the fillet in there in the bottom. Okay, just like that. All right, as long as it's sitting in the bottom and it's juice around it. And then all right, so now what we're going to do, take your thyme leaves and strip them off the stalks. Okay, usually the best way to do this is to hold it at the top and pull the stalk, the leaves downwards, and they should pretty much strip off. They hold it like this and go like that, and they'll come right off. You want about 2 tablespoons. Now, if you have a mortar and pestle, you can pound these in a mortar and pestle. You can also put them in a blender. What I'm going to use, because that's what I have it for things like this, and I used it last night when we're doing small amounts. So I often do it in the food processor or a blender, but when we're doing a small amount, it's kind of tricky sometimes. So I have a good old-fashioned Braun coffee grinder. And this one, someone gave me this one. I just use this for spices. I put my spices in, or I've got to combine. I put it in there and, turn it on and it chops this all up. The other thing you can use, again, with a small amount, is if you have like a smoothie maker, those individual ones where you put it on the top and you take it off and smoothies are made. That's good too for small amounts because, as I say, doing it in the food processor, where it's different, it's good if you've got 3 or 4 times as much. If you've only got a small amount, it's really hard. So it just all shoots to the side, which is not ideal. And then it doesn't all get chopped up properly. So pulling these off as much as I can. And if you get a little bit of the stalk in there, don't worry about it because it will get chopped up. All right, so I have about 2 tablespoons there. So I'm going to put this in to my little coffee grinder here. And I'm going to add just a little bit of white pepper. If you're going to use black pepper instead of white, you want to use a bit more because the black pepper is a lot hotter. All right. And then I'm just going to chop this up as much as I can. Yeah, I don't know if you can see, guys, but it's nice and finely chopped. It's like really, really fine like that. So it's great to use. Okay, before I put that on there, we want to put the juice of our lemon on top of our fish. Doesn't matter really what order you put these in. Same thing with the seeds. If you can see them, get them out. If not, don't worry about them too much. So I'm putting my whole lemon juice. And of course, what's going to make this Caribbean is our rum. All right, and then all that lovely chopped up thyme with the salt and pepper, pour it on, scrape it on, whatever you have to do onto the top of your fish. A couple of tiny spatulas, which that's the thing with the coffee maker. It's the little blades are in the middle and they can get in the way. So this works the same. If you happen to see one of these things, I don't think they even sell them anymore. But if you, I mean, maybe they do. But the good old raw meat is the sort of thing you might see in a garage sale. Which, if you see one, it's finding it very useful at the moment because we're doing smaller amount of pricing. All right, so I'm going to smearing that on the top of the fish. And we're going to turn this over periodically while it's marinating. Now, because we're only marinating for a short time, we're going to do it at room temperature, all right? Which is safe to do and also means the marinade will absorb a little, will absorb faster. Now, I'm also going to get my rum, which I didn't grab. I'm going to pour a tablespoon of rum on the top. All right, so I have my rum. I'm going to drizzle it over the top as well. All right, I think that's everything. Yes. We're just going to let that sit at room temperature, put it to one side, and then we'll turn it over periodically, okay? To get it to marinate evenly. All right, let me clear up a bit of my mess. So we're going to make the roti dough next. Ideally, you want to do this with an electric mixer of some sort. It could be KitchenAid, or it could be just a hand mixer. Whatever you have at hand. It can be done by hand, but if you've got a machine to do it, why do it by hand? All right. Now there are many different types of roti dough. Originally, rotis, from my research originated in India. But last night I did a Malaysian class and we did a Malaysian roti. And they're all just slightly different, very similar. All right. It's basically a flour and water and or egg mixture, sometimes with baking powder, sometimes with baking soda, that is coated, combined together and coated in oil or ghee. Now, ghee is clarified butter, and we're going to do a little bit of that tonight. It's very easy to make as long as you don't mess around with it. And I like to say with the ghee better than just the oil. It can be done with oil, it could even be done with margarine as well if you wanted to. So what we'll do though, we'll make the dough first because this needs to rest for a little bit. So you want 2 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking soda, and half teaspoon of salt, cup of water, and your 3 to 4 tablespoons of butter for later on. That's our ghee. All right, we're going to melt that in a minute. So I'm going to pull out my KitchenAid right here, which is really useful. And then I'm going to, we'll melt this butter now so we have it ready. So take your 3 to 4 tablespoons of butter, cut it into pieces, just smallish pieces. Doesn't have to be any particular size. And this is going to be our clarified butter. Used a lot in countries, in India, I know for a fact, because the non-mixing are in some cultures of dairy and meat. So when you take the milk solids out, in theory, you've taken the dairy out, so then they can use it. You can buy ghee as well, already made. I saw some even in Walmart the other day. I was in there getting something. We're just going to start melting the butter first while we're making the roti dough. So you just want to cut your butter up into a small pot like this. And with this butter, we're just going to, over a very low heat, because all we want to do is melt that butter and nothing else. You don't want any color on it or anything. You want it to just melt gradually. And I can do that while we're making the roti dough. And the roti dough, as you found out, Amy, I'm sure, is that easy. So I have all my dry ingredients in here, my baking powder, my salt, and my flour. And I'm just going to mix it together and then just add the water to it. Oh, that's good. Okay, so I've got my water, and I'm just going to pour it in. Cup of water should be fine. This dough should be fairly soft. All right, my dough is very wet. That must mean my flour is damp. So I'm going to add a bit more flour to it. The dough wants to be soft, but not soupy. All right, so I need to add a bit more flour to my bring it together. And it will depend on the brand of flour you're using. Maybe I mismeasure my flour. So don't touch that butter while it's melting, all right? Just let it just melt and then turn it off. Yeah, I think I only put a couple of markings so that 2 cups of measuring this really on. There we go. So I've got it mixed together. It's pretty wet, but that's okay. So what I'm going to do now, I am going to take it out and I'm going to divide it into 4 balls. Now you probably need some additional flour to do this. Put my machine away. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of flour on my chopping board here so I can divide this dough up into 4 pieces. Okay. It's still a little sticky, mine, but that's okay because, as I say, it will spread out better if it's sticky. But I'm going to put it on the flour in a sec. So it's a little wet. I'm going to grab it with a floury hand and dip it out. There we go. And I'm just going to bring it together and divide it into 4 pieces. Yeah, it was a little wet, so I've just incorporated a little bit of that flour. You don't have to play with it too much. Just divide it in 4, stick it in a bowl or a plate, and then we will let it rest. Cut it with my knife. There we go. All right. Put a bit of flour in here so it doesn't stick to the plate, and then we're going to let that rest to make it easier to roll it out and that a bit later. All right. Okay. That's that. So I guess I have to cover it with. Just cover it with some plastic wrap or something again, and stop it from drying out. All right. There we go. One far away. So I'm just going to put this to one side for about half an hour. Break my flour back in here, so I might need it a bit later. Now, with that butter, my butter is melted. Just turn it off, and then I'm going to show you what we're going to do with it right now. I'm going to let it cool, and we'll come back to it. It's easier to work with it quick. All right, clean that off, get rid of this. Yeah, so just turn it off, let it sit. Do not shake it around, because if you shake it around, you're going to mess it up, basically. All right. All right. So before we separate that out, let's move on to our dessert. Okay. Okay, there are 2 parts to the dessert. This is a flan. Like any flan, it's eggs, milk and or cream, and flavorings. All right. Our flavoring is going to be our three citrus fruits. Can't get the word out. Lemon, lime, and orange. All good tropical flavors. Okay. So now the custard part is easy. The not so easy part is the caramel that we're going to put on the bottom. If you've never made a caramel before, whole new experience for you. Basically, without getting too technical about this, the caramel is made with sugar and a bit of water, all right? And what you do is you cook that sugar with the water without touching it or stirring it or anything, and it goes through the 7 stages of cooked sugar, which I won't bore you with, because the final one is caramel. And that's the stage we want to take it to. We will then, when we've got that caramel, we will then put it in the bottom of whatever you're going to cook these in. I have these little ramekins. There's something like this, something oven-proof. Or you could do it in 1 and just divide it in 2 or something like that. But these are kind of a perfect size, okay? And then we make the custard, pour it on the top, and then it gets baked in the oven. And then when we unmold them, the caramel acts as a sauce or caramel over the top of the dessert when we're finished, all right? So that is the tricky part. So as I say, how we do this. So carefully move that butter to one side. You need another very small pot, all right? Nothing too big, because it makes it a little hard to keep an eye on it, not to keep control of it if it's a big container. So as I say, we're going to do step 3 first, all right? Just to confuse the hell out of everybody. So what I want you to do, you had 2 lots of sugar. One was half a cup, one was 3 tablespoons. The half a cup of sugar to go into your pot like that. And to that, you are going to add, excuse me, you are going to add about 6 tablespoons to half a cup of water. All right, it doesn't matter if it's slightly more. It can be slightly more if you want to. Just put 6 cups of water in there. Okay, so you have water and sugar. Slightly move the water around so the sugar is fully submerged. Okay, now if you have it, I want you to use a pinch of cream of tartar, and I'll tell you why. This helps to prevent you having a disaster, i.e. it not working. All right, so it stops it recrystallizing. So what we're going to do, we're going to put this on the heat and we're going to let it over a medium-high heat without stirring it. We're going to let it melt and then go through those stages till we get to caramel. Now, if we stir it around, what's going to happen is some of the crystals that aren't fully dissolved are going to come up with the water on the side of the pan, and the water will evaporate and you'll have crystals and it will recrystallize the whole thing, which means you'll end up with like brittle instead of caramel, which is hard and clear. All right, we want to try and avoid that. So an additional way to try and avoid that as a little precautionary measure is get a little bowl or something with a bit of just regular water in and a pastry brush. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do with that in a little bit as a sort of security bit. All right, I've got a pastry brush there. So I'm going to take this, put it on the burner, medium-high heat. All right. I'm going to move this. I'm going to turn my camera around so you guys can watch this as it goes through the stages of caramelization. I'm going to wait until it's just leave it like that. Like don't do anything to it. I'm going to leave it until the sugar melts. You want all the sugar melt, then I'm going to turn the camera around so you can see what's going on. Don't be tempted to stir it. Okay. So while we're waiting for that to start, let's prep citrus fruit for the actual custard itself. All right. So we are going to do half a lemon, half a lime, half an orange, and we're going to do the zest and the juice. All right. So it is a little tricky. Now, if you have a whole fruit, which I have a half a lemon here, but whole fruit, then use the whole fruit. Again, zest about half of it like we just did. You can zest it into a bowl. You can also peel this and, as well, but this is quicker. So about half of each one zest. All right, so now I'm going to do my half a lemon. I have a half a lemon here, so I'm going to use that. So I'm going to zest first, and then I'll squeeze the juices out. It's harder to zest when you cut the lemon in half, or any of the fruits in half. It's better to do it before it's cut, really. But all right, it's my lemon, and then I have a half of orange in here as well. Now, again, I say here about put it in the food processor, which is good, but to be quite honest, this is why I'm zesting. with the small amount we're doing, it's probably better just to zest it like this and then mix the sugar in. All right. If you did it in the food processor, you could do the whole pieces of the skin. I'm sorry, we're not using the juice for this. This is something I did last night. We did the juice, but very similar dessert we did. I wasn't thinking. We're just doing the zest. And then we'll add the sugar to this. Okay, so keep an eye on your mixture. I'm going to turn it on in a second to be able to see. My sugar is almost dissolved in there. So you can see that if you were doing this for a lot of, if you were doing this for 6 or 10 people, it might make more sense just to peel the rind off and break it up in your food processor. But as we've got doing a small amount, I'm correcting my own recipe. All right, so to that, we're going to add about 1.5 teaspoons of sugar. This is 1/2 teaspoon. And I'm going to mix it together. Okay, so what I want you to do now is to put that mixture into a saucepan and add to that the milk and the cream. So we have 1/4 cup of milk and 1/2 cup of heavy cream. And I've also got my vanilla in with my cream. All right. And we're going to just bring this to a boil, turn it off, and let it sit for a little while. Okay. All right. So if you look, again, no rush for this because it's got a ways to go yet. But I'm going to turn this camera around and put the other one on so you guys can see what this is going to look like. Let me just clear some of this away. So mine is boiling. So I'm not touching it. I'm not doing anything. But I want my little bowl of water and a pastry brush next to this. Now, as this cooks, you will see little splatters on the side. If in those little splatters, like I did right there, you see any sugar crystals, take a little bit of that water, shake it off, and just paint it, brush it back in. Don't go down into liquid, but just allow the water to wash the crystals back in. All right? All right, my mixture. And this is kind of a waiting game. You have to just be patient. It takes a while. But it's a very interesting process. I don't know whoever discovered it, but this is more science than cooking, believe me. Yeah, I see a bit more sugar on my side here, so I don't know how that got there, but it must have splashed up, so I'm just going to brush it off. You want to keep painting it because it takes the more water you put in, the longer it's going to take to get brown. But you do want to paint it if there's any on the side. Once your your cream and milk and citrus mixture comes to a boil, then you can turn it off and we'll let it sit. All right, mine's at a boil. I'm just going to turn it off and let it sit in the pan there. Now, the easy thing about a caramel is that basically it's easy to identify because it goes brown. And as soon as it goes brown, we are going to pour it into our ramekins. Whatever you do, do not put your fingers anywhere near that, even now. It's really hot. And if it gets to the caramel stage and you touch it, you'll get a 3rd-degree burn, believe me. All right. So these are my 2 little ramekins. Put them right here. I'm going to have them ready to pour it in when it turns. As this heats up, you will notice that your bubbles will get smaller, more concentrated, more viscous. That means the water is evaporating and you've got just melted sugar in there, which is exactly what caramel is. Okay. While you're doing this, put your oven on 350. Okay. And then also bring a little pot of water to a boil. You can use a kettle or whatever, which we're going to put around the dessert to protect it in a bit. You need enough water that's going to come about half of the ramekins in the container you're using. All right? Using to cook them in the oven. The reason we do that is cook it in a water bath. The reason we cook it in a water bath is to protect the outer edge of the dessert from getting overcooked and getting chewy, like overcooked eggs. All right? So it's always for fragile things like custard. That's what you do. Now, you can see mine is starting to go brown on the very edge over here, which I know is a little hard to see. I'm going to turn this one light off here because I find that you can see a little better if I don't have that overhead light on for a minute. There we go. You might be able to see a little bit better color-wise, yes. Can you see how it's starting to brown? So now I'm going to slightly swirl this to get that brown to evenly distribute. I want it all nice and uniform brown, okay? Almost there. Okay, so it's nice and brown. Can you see that? So now what I'm going to do very carefully, I'm going to pour it a layer into the bottom of each ramen. You've probably got more than you need. Just enough to sort of fully cover the bottom and a little bit more. Don't touch, put your finger in there, all right? Okay, can you see that? Now, if you touch the bottom of these, they're going to be really, really hot, okay? So just let them sit to one side. With your pan, I'll tell you how to do this now. Fill it with cold water, bring it back to a boil, and that will all dissolve. If you don't, it will set hard like hard caramel, and it'll be a fabulous piece to try and clean. That mixture will dissolve in your pan. Like. Okay. So I want to leave my I'll turn this back around again. I want to leave the mixture a little bit longer, the cream and citrus mixture a bit longer to marinate. All right, so we will move on to something else first and then come back to that shortly. Okay, so I've got my water boiling, that's going to be ready for my water bath. I'm going to cook mine in here, all right, when we get to that point, to protect the outside. Okay, what have I got on this next? Egg rolls. Okay. Let's start with the egg rolls, and we'll probably stop halfway through and do the dessert because it needs half an hour to cook. So, for the egg rolls, you get all your stuff out for your egg rolls. We can prep all the veggies and everything, and then we'll come back to doing the dessert. I think that will work best of all. Okay, so let me just clear some room here and then I can put this right here. So we have wonton wrappers. We have red pepper, cabbage, carrot, and scallion. Okay, so let's chop and dice all of these first. So with your red pepper, take out the white bit from the inside and then cut this in really skinny strips. All right. And then turn those strips and cut them into about 4 sort of equal sized pieces like that. All right. And for our carrot, we should peel the carrot. And we're going to cut skinny pieces of this as well. Okay. Take the top off. Cut a piece about 4 inches long. And then we're going to cut 1 piece off the side of the carrot so it'll lie down nice and flat. And then I want you to cut as thinner strips as you can this way. Okay, it's not very thin, that one. And then I want these to be cut again in skinny strips, like that. And then cut those in about 3 pieces. Because we're making little wontons, we need to have small pieces, otherwise they're going to stick out the side of the wontons. And we don't want that. And you'll be amazed how few of these you really need. It's, a little goes a long way. So nice skinny strips. David, you're practicing your knife skills there. Okay, so that's about 1/4 cup. So I'm going to put those over there as well. And then we have our cabbage. Now, it doesn't matter if you didn't get Napa cabbage, regular cabbage will work. We do, again, just want this cut, or shredded, I should say, finely. So just chop it up roughly, and then you can just make it even smaller. All right, a little bit more. So I'm just dicing this small. I'm just going to put it back in here. Down there. Put this back in here. All right, so that's my cabbage. And then I'm going to chop up my scallion. So again, thin little pieces for this. Use the whole scallion, the green part as well. Okay, push that to one side as well. And then close the garlic. So this is going to be finely minced, so I usually just take the whole garlic like that, put my knife on the top and go like that, crack the skin, pull the skin off. Roughly chop it in a few pieces and then mince it. And when I mince, I put the flat of my hand on the front of my knife and rotate the back of the knife backwards and forwards to dice up the garlic nice and small. Okay. On over there too. All right, so in addition to that, we have our wontons. I have ginger here. I also have sesame seeds. Now, in this mixture, I have all these sauce ingredients, which we'll come back to a bit later, all right? What else do I have? Oh, soy sauce and some oil, and I have some chicken broth. Okay, and my wonton skins, of course. I think that's everything. The only other thing I've got to do is chop up meat. Now, you can sometimes buy, stir-fried cut meat. This is nice tender pork loin. So I am going to cut this in fairly thin strips. I have about 2 or 3 ounces here, probably a bit more than I need, really. And then I'm going to cut these again into thin strips. All right. Everything small. So that you'll see when we go to the little wontons, they're small and they need small bits of meat. You have long pieces, cut them in half. I'm do another piece here. And of course, the plus is when they're skinny like this, they cook really fast, which is good. Okay. It says I've got it here. Might have more filling than I need, but that's okay. I can always snack on it. I defrosted this. It was in the freezer, so I can't refreeze it. My husband can always snack on the leftovers. Make sure you get rid of any fatty bits and you've got fatty bits on the end. There's a couple of bits on that. Not too bad, but a couple. All right, so there's my pork. All right, so I think we have everything. So the procedure for making this, all right, we're going to make the filling first and let it get cold. So we're going to heat some oil in a skillet or a wok over medium heat, and we add the ginger and the garlic and cook stirring until the garlic is slightly softened, about 2 minutes. Then we're going to add the pork and stir until it turns white. Again, about 2 minutes. In other words, it's coated all over. Then we're going to take the pork out onto a plate, add the veggies, that's the scallions, the carrot, and the red peppers in the skillet, cook stirring until slightly softened, about 2 minutes. And then we're going to add the cabbage, the tablespoon of broth, and the soy. Reduce the heat to medium-low and let simmer until the liquid is evaporated and the vegetables are tender, about 5 minutes. And then put the pork back in and let it all cool to room temperature. And then later we will make the wontons, put them together. All right, so it does need to cool. So I do have a nice little skillet that I'm going to use here. It's kind of cool. So I'm going to actually put my stuff in there. Let me turn the camera back around. I've got far too much on my table here. Let me move this out of the way. And then you guys can see what I'm doing. If you look at your ramekins now, they should be set in the bottom, all right? All right. So turn this round, heat on. Medium, all right, medium high. And I'm going to add the ginger and the garlic to that. You don't want to cook it too much because the ginger will burn, but just enough to kind of release the flavor, okay? Basically what the garlic's doing here is flavoring the oil, which is good. All right, that looks pretty good to me. I'm getting the flavor. It's starting to color very slightly. So I'm going to put my pork in. And I'm going to kind of stir fry this around a little bit. Till the pork is all white. Couple of minutes. bowl to put that in. And because it's so thin and so it's not going to take very long to cook, and then we put it back in, you know, it's going to be pretty much good. Make sure it's brown, white all over. It's going to cook for about 5 minutes at the end as well. You don't want to overcook it because it'll make it really soft. All right, mine is pretty much that. All right, so I'm going to take this out, pop it in here. If you have no oil left at all in the bottom of your pan, you can add a little more. I'm just going to give a couple of sprays, like the spray bottle of oil. There we go, just a little bit. All right, so now we're going to put in the carrot, the onion, and the red pepper. Let this cook for a minute. Just let those vegetables soften a little bit. Now I have a load of stock here, and I'm just going to use a tablespoon of it. Slight softening of those, just a tiny bit. You don't want them really mushy. And then put in your soy, your cabbage, and your tablespoon of broth, chicken broth. Okay, there we go. And cook this until all that liquid is fully evaporated. This again won't take very long because we're only doing a small amount. It's not going to take 5 minutes. It's probably going to take that. So make sure it's pretty dry. All right. All right, mine's evaporated, so now I'm just going to throw my pork in. Oh, excuse me. And turn this off. Give it a stir around. And we're just going to let that sit until we're cool, until we're ready to stuff the wonton wrappers, all right? So we are now going to return to our dessert because we want to get in the oven. So what you should have now, you should have the rest of your sugar, which will be about 2 and a bit tablespoons of sugar, and an egg, all right? And then your mixture, let me turn this back. Your mixture of milk cream and vanilla and your citrus fruit, okay? So we're now going to make the custard itself, all right? Because we have to use the milk, all right? So what we're going to do, we're going to strain this into a small bowl. You've got your oven preheated. What I want you to do though first is to put your egg, break your egg into a bowl and add your sugar to it. All right. And then what you're going to do, so we have egg in here and the rest of that sugar. And you're going to whisk this together. And that hot water is the hot water to go around the dessert. Okay. Now this mixture, we are going to strain this in. So you can put the strainer over your bowl like that, and strain all of that mixture in. Make sure you get it all in there and then press down on it to get all the flavor out. And you should just be left with the pieces of citrus. So press it down like this. And you should just be left with the pulp, really. Now, if you wanted to, you could leave the pulp in if you wanted, but it's a bit bitty. And make sure you scrape off underneath. And this mixture is going to go into, actually mix it up a little bit. That's a good idea. I haven't done that. You can taste it. Oh, tastes great. Half in each one. Okay. Now, whatever you're going to put these in, just stand them in there like that. Take your hot water and pour it carefully into the container. Come back halfway up. And then this is going to go in your 350 oven for about half an hour. Now these are typically served cold. They can be hot. You can eat them however you like. But normally they are served cold. But I will unmold them when they're ready, and you can see what they're going to look like. So I'm going to put it in for 35 minutes, 35 to 40 minutes usually. I'm going to put it in for 35 minutes and check them. And the way you tell if they're done is they should look like set jello. So right in there, my timer on. So dessert's all done in the oven. Perfect. Most important part, right? The dessert. I'm trying to keep my space fairly tidy. Okay. All right, and we're doing really well. It's moving along nicely. I just really wanted to get the dessert in to make sure that. So that will be completely done. When it comes out, as I said, you can have it chilled or warm. We run a knife around it, a wet knife around it, and then unmold it onto a plate. And then even though that caramel's gone hard now, because we've introduced moisture from the custard, when we unmold it, it'll be on the bottom and it'll run over and down the sides of the dessert, okay, and make a caramel or a citrus wine, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so what I decided we're going to do next. Oh yes, okay. Let's see how our egg roll. All right, this is a little warm, so I think we're going to do the roti first, okay? I want this to be a bit cooler before we move on to those. Okay. So first things first, remember that butter you had. Mine is solidified a bit, so I'm going to, I guess you must be cold. I'm putting butter on gentle heat just to melt it. Again, don't touch it, all right? Just melt it. And then I'll show you what I'm going to do. You're going to need a small teaspoon and a little bowl to put the butter in. So just enough till it melts. Again, I'm going to go overhead for this because I want you to see what it looks like. So when I melted it. Okay. So here is my mixture. There's this stuff on the top, which is residue or scum or whatever you want to call it. All right. We want to remove that. So what I want you to do, again, because we're doing a small amount here, it's tricky with a small amount. I want you to very carefully tip your pot, just carefully, and just take that off the top like that. Can you see what I'm doing? Literally just taking the white stuff, which is not the milk solids. It's just the residue of another residue from the butter. All right, like that. As much as you can. So now you should be seeing clear yellow liquid. All right, now I'm actually going to swap hands. You can do this. Very carefully tipping it the other way. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to pour off. Try and get this at the right angle so you can see. There we go. We're going to pour this off. In the bottom, you may be able to see some white stuff in the bottom, underneath the clear butter. That's the milk solid. So what you want to do is just carefully pour this off. I've got a little bit more of my scum here, skin stuff. There we go. Very carefully pour this off. Now, as you pour it off, you'll be able to see the white in the bottom. It won't be a lot, but there'll be a little bit of white milk solids in the bottom of there. All right, there's only a little bit in mine, there's not a lot, but you just want to make sure you leave those in there. So that you should be left with just clear liquid like that. Yeah, very few. That's funny actually. Maybe because it was a small amount, a lot of it went to the surface. There's only a little bit in there. And this is what you're going to use. I'm going to get rid of that little tiny bit of white from there. And you have your nice clear butter or ghee. Okay? All right, so let's look at this dough recipe again. I'm going to do this straight on my counter rather than on the chopping board. So I'm going to move my chopping board out of the way here. Okay, so this is a flatbread, all right? One of many in the world, okay? Lots and lots of different types of flatbread. There are also many, many different ways of making it. And when I researched doing the Malaysian one, there's as many recipes as there are stars in the sky, I think. All right. So what we're going to do, we're going to start off on step 4, sprinkle each ball with flour and flatten to or roll out into a circle roughly about 5 inches in diameter. All right. So I actually found minutes ago. So we'll do one ball at a time. This is a soft, as I say, this is a soft dough. And that's why we cooked it with a should have picked up the flour in my hand, it would have been easier. So, little coating of flour all over each ball, like that. And you may want to put some additional, you should put some additional flour on your work surface, okay? So, this should be easy to roll out. You can really do it with the flat of your hand, or use a rolling pin. Put flour on your rolling pin and roll it out to about put it out like that, about 5 inches. a bit more than 5 inches. All right, so then you want to put a little bit of that butter mixture on the top. Now what this does, if anybody know what puff pastry is, puff pastry has layers of butter in between. They're not melted, but they what help make the puff pastry rise. And it's a similar concept to that. All right, there are many different ways you can do this. You can just roll it up. I'm going to actually cut into the middle like this, about halfway, and I'm going to start and I'm going to roll it round in a circle into a cone shape. Just like that. And put it back on here. That's giving us layers. And again, that's something you get when you do you make puff pastry, is you're always working for layers, looking for layers, because what happens is the butter evaporates, melts, evaporates, pushes the layers apart, which helps to make the mixture light and fluffy. It's a similar idea, although not anything like as dramatic as a puff pastry. All right. So this dough, nice and easy to roll out because it is such a soft dough. Rather big 5-inch circle, but never mind. Bit of butter all over. And these don't have to be beautiful looking circles or whatever, okay? This is a rustic thing, very family orientated item. Oop, there we go. Probably a better 5-inch circle than the last one. But... Right, so a bit of butter all over. Fair amount of butter all over, like that. And then making a cut here halfway in, and then make a spiral. As I say, just there, this purpose of this is one of many ways to add layers to your roti, which will help to make it crispy, or flaky, I should say, not crispy. All right. We'll spring back a bit, but don't worry about it. That's why I'm just rolling it a wee bit bigger, because we'll spring back. So people made bread before they knew what yeast was. So halfway into the middle again, and then very tightly roll it up and around like that. And we're going to cover that and leave it for a little bit. Now, fortunately, we have that butter, that flour on there, which we can use now to do our wontons, to stop the wontons sticking to the surface. Okay, give my hands a quick wash. You probably will need a bit of, have a bit of water and a pastry brush at hand because you will want to brush the edges of the wonton to help them stick together. All right. I still have my pot of water. Let's put it in there. I don't know what happens to mine. Okay. I've got lots of basement brushes. Okay. So with your wontons and your filling, now my filling, as long as it's room temperature or something, it should be fine. It feels pretty good. You want something to put these on. You can use a cookie sheet or whatever you like. I'm going to sprinkle sesame seeds in with that mixture now, all right? Whatever you put these on, put a little bit of flour on to stop them sticking before we cook them, all right? So pop that to one side. Get your wonton wrappers. Just do a few at a time because they may dry out, all right? Make sure that you get them single. They are quite thin and it's very easy to accidentally end up with two layer thick. Just move some of this flour away. Don't have too much, just enough to stop them sticking to the counter. All right, I usually do about 3 or 4 at a time. Just 3 like that. Now, I'm going to take a little bit of water around the 4 edges of the dough. This will help these to stick. It's just like doing regular egg rolls, it's just they're small, which makes them a little bit more tricky to fold up because they're tiny, but they're very cute. The trick is not to overfill them, all right? Which is easily done. So take one. You just want a small amount of filling. Make sure you get a bit of everything. All right, let me see. Yeah, you don't need a lot because, as I say, they'll be very hard to fold up. Take the piece nearest you. Hold your veggies, roll it over, press it down. Like that. Then take a little bit of water on each end. You want to make sure your filling's not coming out of each end. And then you're going to fold those sides up and over. It's like doing a regular, as I say, a regular water. And then tiny bit more water on that side you just folded up. And then roll them like that. And then put them the same side down on your cookie sheet or whatever you're going to store them on. All right. So again, don't be tempted to put too much filling in. Some of my chicken is a little big, not chicken, my pork. So I'm actually going to cut a couple of these pieces in half, which will make it a little easier to arrange them on the wonton. You'll probably find you'll have enough for, I mean, more than 12, probably like 18 or something, because it makes an awful lot. Right, don't need all this. Just make sure you've got a bit of everything in there. All right. So remember, wet all the way over, press down. Just a drop of water on either side, pull the sides up and over like that. And then just wet again, just a little bit, so that when you roll them over, it catches the inside. Don't press too hard because you might break, don't push too hard because you may end up breaking the wonton. Make sure you get a little bit of red pepper, a bit of carrot in there. Not carrot, no, cabbage. There we go. Great little appetizers, these, or to serve as an hors d'oeuvre. A lot easier to eat than full egg rolls. It's kind of fun. And obviously you could change the filling. I did these a few weeks ago with somebody and we used chicken instead of the pork. Pork is more traditional, but that's okay. All right. So remember, water all around. Not too much. You don't want to make it really, really wet. Just enough to dampen it, which will bring it all together, later to bring it together. All right. A bit less chicken, a bit more carrot, a bit of red pepper on there. There we go. A little tedious, time consuming to make, but fun as well. Wouldn't want to feed 500 people with these, but I've done worse things. and over again. Okay. Oh, I think I'll use this. Okay. Make sure you haven't got any little pieces escaping out the side, because it will spew out when you fry them. How we do the time? Just checking the time. Now I have split this one, but fortunately it's just there, so hopefully when I fold it over, we'll be okay. All right, I am going to do 2 more, and then we will move on a bit because I want to make sure we get everything done. If we have a bit more spare time at the end, we can make a few more. I just want to make sure we get everything done. Making bits of chicken here. Here we go. Good. There in my haste, that's not the prettiest one. Let's see, make sure I can roll it. There we go. Good. I did it. Good to try and keep your fingers on it when you roll that over, because it does time to keep the filling in check a little bit. There we go. All right. Okay. So I'm going to sit there. I know I've got loads of filling left, but I actually want us to move on. So just wipe off my counter a little bit. We're going to prep everything for the chicken now. For the fish, what am I talking about? Chicken, sorry. For the fish. Just scrape everything off here and something over. All this flour all over the place. Just for a minute. All right, so put my chopping board back. Let's look at the fish dish. So, how this works. I get the right recipe, it helps. Here we go. So what we're going to do, we're going to heat some oil in a medium skillet, add the onion rings and cook for 45 minutes until they begin to soften. Add the fresh cilantro, garlic, tomatoes, slices, and sugar to the onions. Stir and cook for 3 to 4 minutes until the tomatoes begin to release their juices. Then we take the fish from the marinade, add it to the pan, covering it with some of the onions and tomatoes. Pour over the marinade and 2 tablespoons of water. Then cover the pan and gently cook for 6 to 8 minutes until the fish starts to flake and the onions are softened. They still have a little bit of bite to them. Season with salt and pepper. All right. And then we will put that to one side, let it cool, and then we will cook some rice in a large pot of boiling salted water for 12 minutes, and then gently reheat our fish when we're ready to serve. Okay, so let's prep our veggies. I have my garlic, my tomato, and my onion here. So with that's a big microphone. So with the onion, I am going to cut this into thin strips. Now, I generally do this with the onion in half because it's hard to cut a round circular onion. So cut your onion in half, remove the stem end and all the brown bits, and cut this in pieces when you get the flipping. Sometimes it's really hard to get the fat off the outside. Sometimes you'll go down one layer. That's what I'm going to do because it won't come off. There you go. All right. And then nice thin strips, okay? Put the pointy of your knife on the chopping board and just thin strips like that. Another half. And strips again. Now you could do a bit more onion if you wanted to. As I was saying to you, Amy, you could do something else if you wanted to, because you don't want to do tomato. And then with our garlic. Oh, too close garlic. Too close garlic there. All right, I need another clove of garlic. That's I had to. Never had too much garlic, in my opinion. All right, let me grab another clove. We got this one. All right. Oh, there is two there. Losing my mind. There we go. So skin off again, and we're going to mix this up. So same thing, chop it up roughly, and then mince it. Two nice big cloves of garlic here. So. If garlic really sticks to your knife, add a little bit of salt to it. That stops it, helps prevent it from sticking to your knife too much. But just make sure it's nice and small. Okay, my garlic and my tomato. So slices of tomato. I'm going to cut mine in half and do it half slices, I think. Not too thin. Couldn't get through that piece. Sometimes cutting it from the inside out is easier, actually. My knife was sharp, but I can use another sharp one. All right, and there's my tomato. All right. All right, so I'm going to use a medium skillet. Turn this around again. And I'm going to heat my oil. And then we're going to cook the onion rings. And then I am going to grab my fresh cilantro out of the fridge. I didn't want it to sit out. Okay. And if you don't have cilantro, it's fine. You could use another herb with it, or just none at all. It's fine. I want a little bit of this, a little bit, quarter cup. I love cilantro. Some people don't like it. It's a genetic thing. Some people think it's still not very nice to look, but it tastes like soap. And if it does, it tastes like soap to you. It tastes like soap. Right, just pull up the stems in and then give it a wash. When you wash your herbs, you should dry them really well afterwards, or else it's very hard to dice them. All right. I know you can't see this because we're facing the other way, but I'm just going to mince my garlic, my cilantro up just like I did with the garlic, okay? All right, my oil is foaming a bit, so I'm going to put my onions in. And let those cook while I cut my cilantro. Cut your cilantro nice and small. Yes. So just let them soften a little bit. Yeah, mine's still wobbly inside. And that's pretty normal. All right, so it's probably going to need a little bit longer. But it should basically just sort of like very set jello. Okay. Yes, my onions have started to soften just a little bit. So I'm going to put in my tomatoes, my garlic, and my cilantro. And cook this until those tomatoes start to sort of give off their juices, okay? Oh, and sorry, the brown sugar as well. A little bit of brown sugar goes in as well. About 3 or 4 minutes. And then I think what we'll do, we'll turn this off and we'll come back and finish the fish at the end so that it feels all nice and hot. You haven't got to reheat it. I was going to say reheat it. I prefer not to reheat fish. So, all right. So that is my rice for a little bit. So, a little bit of sugar gives it just a little umph as well. Because we're going to put lime juice and lemon juice in, so we kind of need that little bit of kick to it. All right. Turn this off. And we are going to, three things we're going to do now. We are going to cook sorry. We're going to cook the little egg rolls and we're going to make the roti, okay? So let's start with the egg rolls because we can keep these hot. So you want to heat about a third cup of oil in your pan, and we are going to cook these until they are golden, and then we can keep them just warm in the oven, or you can eat them straight away, which I'm sure you're hungry, so you probably need to. So we can do that, and we can snack on those while we finish everything else. Okay. So let your oil get fairly hot. This time you should just see me again. Hello, here I am. Let your oil get hot. This is mine's going to take a little bit longer. I have a cast iron pan here. It's going to take a little bit more time in the cast iron pan. Oh, by the way, the rest of that clarified butter, if you don't use it all, it keeps a lot longer than regular butter because it's the milk solids in butter that goes bad, it goes rancid, and therefore you can keep it. So if you've got a lot of butter you don't know what to do with it, clarify it and it'll last for ages, okay? And you can use that clarified butter to cook your roti in if you'd like to. All right. We've got a bit of something going on here. Don't have these too hot. They want to go brown, but they don't want to be too brown. All right, I'm going to check my dessert. See how it's doing. Yes, I'm going to give them another 5 minutes. They're jiggling a tiny bit. So another 5 minutes should be perfect, which will be the 40, which is usually what they need. Okay. All right, so I'm going to try my first one of these, pop it in. Nope, not quite hot enough. It should sizzle when you put them in. All right, guys. So if it's sizzling, put them in, space them out a bit so that they don't, run into each other and break each other up or whatever. But do make sure that the sizzles, because if it doesn't sizzle, that's when it absorbs a ton of oil. And we don't need more oil absorbed than. Not absolutely necessary. As I say, because I'm using a cast iron skillet, it's taking a little longer to heat up. You may also want to heat some more water for our rice. Now, you can either a saucepan or a kettle, large amount of boiling salted water for our rice. Comes to a boil, put the rice in, we cook it for 12 minutes. All right, that's it. We're not doing the absorption method because we're not having any flavoring in there. We're just doing regular boiled rice, which is going to go underneath our fish. All right, let's try another one. Take a little piece off the corner. Yes, after you take a little bit off your whatever you're cooking, if it fries when you put it in, then you're good to go. Make sure you put them seam side down first, so that that's sealed. And then if you have an additional oven, you might want to put that on low. Keep it warm unless you're just going to eat them straight out of the pan, which is fine. So we're just going to cook these, as I say, so they're golden brown. My last piece of paper towel, but you might want to drain them on a piece of paper towel and then put them on a serving plate, or have even a serving straight off the paper towel. All right, once these go brown, like that, turn them over. Now, the sauce for this, I already mixed this together. I have it in my little container here. I just put it all in when I was prepping it. So on your recipe, it's very simple. It's just some soy, rice vinegar, sesame oil, and brown sugar mixed together in a little, I've got it in this little container. It's like a dipping sauce. All right. So I'm going to put that in the middle of there. Guys, look like they're done. Yeah. So put them on the paper towel just to let them drain a bit. And then you're more than welcome to eat them. Keep your strength up. All right. Now you can use your same skillet for your roti if you want. I'm not always going to use this other one because I like this size for my roti. All right. Arrange these on here. There we go. Sit those over there. So when you do the water for your rice, you should put in a good teaspoon of salt into your pot. No idea what to do with my regular salt. Oh, it's here. All right, that's my dessert again. I'm going to pull them out. They should be done. They tend to rise up and go slightly brown. Yes, they're great. Okay, I'm going to bring them over and show you. What they look like. Okay, so the sound, and then you can see what we're looking for. All right, can you see that? And they just barely move when I hit them. All right, so get these out of here. Best way to get them out, I always think with hot water, is to take a towel, wrap it around your hand like this, and just gently lift them out. Try not to get your hands in that boiling hot water. All right. And then you just discard your water. And then put these in the fridge to cool. I'm gonna stick them on here. Woo, they're hot. There we go. And pop them in the fridge. Okay, so as soon as that water boils, we're going to put the rice on, and then we are going to do our roti. Okay. The amount of rice you do, it's up to you. I'm doing 2/3 of a cup because there's two of us, and that's going to be plenty for what we need. All right. So, salt teaspoon of salt, rice, and a big pot of boiling water. All right, like that. And I'm gonna put it on the heat. Turn it on. Set my timer. 12 minutes. This should be good. All right, okay. So back to our little rotis, which will have sat and done their thing in here. So what we're going to do now, you want a little bit more flour on your work surface again. And you can choose whether you cook these. I am actually going to cook these in some of my extra clarified butter that I have left. So I'm going to melt that in a big pot, big pan, I should say. Okay. Low heat. All right, so take one of your rotis, a bit sticky, and we are going to roll this out from the Harvey Robinson into about an 8-inch. All right, so can you see that? About an 8-inch circle. So now I'm going to cook that over a medium-low heat, moving it around a bit for about 3 or 4 minutes on each side until it's golden.
Can we see her pan?
Okay, so let me show you how I've got it in there.
There we go, there we go.
And I'm going to do another one while that's, and again, these don't have to be perfect circles. I say that because mine never are. All right, rolling away here. I know you're watching that. I can see you're not watching me, but that's okay. And I say you should see little bubbles. I mean, I can see on that one, I can see on the other one I've made here. I can see bubbles in the dough. And that is from the fact that we kind of layered it by rolling it around. So it is very springy, this dough. Sometimes just pulling it with your hands works a bit better, but just periodically check the underneath. You want it to be lightly golden. That's not yet, but you just want to check it and make sure it's not getting overcooked. How are we doing for time? Oh, we're okay. Not too bad. So once we cook one of these, we can just let them cook while we finish the fish. So we should be perfect time-wise, I think. All right, my final one. All right, let's check underneath here. Yeah. Can you see? Lightly brown. It's kind of hard to. It's hard to see this light on, but I managed to get cilantro on the corner. All right, so I'm going to take that one off, put it on a plate, and then we are going to just finish our fish dish. So I'm going to move my roti over a bit in a second to do the other ones. And then we will do the fish. All right. Whoop. Okay. Put your tomatoes, onions, garlic mixture on a medium heat to let it heat up before we put the fish in. All right. Okay, I think this first one is done. Slide. Yeah, that's great. So I'm going to put that one out on here, and then I'm going to put a little bit more butter in the bottom, and add another one. Spread this out a bit because it's kind of sprung back away. It's a funny shape. And I'm going to move this now. I'm going to swap it over with the fish. All right, and let that cook and let this heat up. In this pan, we have our tomatoes, our onions, our garlic, that brown sugar. We're heating it up. What we're going to do is, once it's hot, we're going to put the fish in it, put some of the tomatoes on the top, put the lime juice and the lemon juice in with the mixture in here, and then we're going to put a lid on to cover it and cook it till the fish is just cooked. Okay, which will probably take about 5 or 6 minutes, something like that. It's usually 10 minutes the inch of thickness. My fish isn't quite an inch thick, so it's not going to take that long. So make sure that tomato mixture is nice and hot first, okay? Before we put the before we put the fish in. All right, I'm pretty hot here. So I'm going to take my fish out of my marinade, just lift it out like this, put it in, lift a few of those tomatoes onto the top, like that. Pour this mixture. Now I've got a couple of seeds in here which I'm going to take out. And I'm going to pour my mixture in with a couple of tablespoons of water. So I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of water. Put the lid on. Turn your heat down to low. And we're just going to let that cook. All right. All right. My rice is almost done. So the idea is with the rice, guys, is that you put the rice in a bowl or bowls, and you serve it with the fish mixture on the top. All right. So it kind of goes in a bowl with the fish on the top. So I will do one of those to show you guys. And you'll see that with your rice, you won't have to wash it or anything because it will be it'll strain. You know, it's got a little starch out of it. And you strain. And it should be nice and fluffy. Okay? Right. Let's get this other roti out. So just a little bit of cilantro on that one. All right. So I'm going to put half of the rice in here. Keep this bit. And then I'm going to put the mixture on the top. Oh, onto that bowl. Yeah. I've got two bowls, another one in the wash. All right, there's a big mess on my table here, but never mind. Okay. While I'm just waiting for that to finish, I'm going to unmold one of the desserts for you to see. It may still be a bit warm, but I do want you to see what they look like. So what you want to do is take a small sharp knife and get it wet. Get a little plate. Take your knife, run it around the outer edge of the dessert down to the bottom. Press against the outer edge. Like that. Now some of the caramel will stay in the bottom. Put a plate on the top. Turn it over. Give it a shake. You should hear it come loosen, I hope. And then when you unmold it, as you do, sorry, I've picked a plate that's got a chip in it, but never mind. All right, so it's going to look like that. You still have some of the caramel in the bottom. Dribble some of it out. You can always pick up the rest. Now you have to soak these to get them clean, guys. They're really messy. All right, so that is that. Let's see how this other roti's doing. Pretty good. Gonna heat up a little bit. All right. All right. Check your fish and see if it's. No, it's not flaking just yet, so it's not quite done. My heat is a little high here. Turn it down a bit. Shouldn't be. Should just be simmering really. Okay. All right, so I'm going to get our final roast again in a second, and then I think we're pretty much done. Turn this one over. There we go. That should be the last one in here. Maybe I'll do that. And we didn't get around to making any more of our appetizers, but never mind. I'm going to try one. Wonderful. All right, so. Here we are. So to just be starting to play another one. No, not quite. This end is not, and this piece is a bit thicker. So I'm going to take that piece out and show you, and then leave the other one in for a few minutes. So take your fish out, place it on top of your rice, and then pour your vegetables and liquid. So you could definitely use other vegetables in this. You know, you could even add something like a green vegetable like broccoli or something, but add it like right at the end while the fish is cooking or something, just to make it a little different. It's entirely up to you. It's just sort of a classic combination of what is used. but there's no reason why you couldn't do something else. All right, that's my other routine. And I think we are good. Hopefully you've got all your stuff done. I hope. Can you see everything here?